Hello and welcome to the kickoff weekend for Growing Up New Mexico. I am Abby Bordner and I'm the VP of Development for Growing Up New Mexico. I'd like to thank our event sponsor, Del Norte Credit Union. They recently launched their Love Foundation that gives back to the community. Del Norte is a generous supporter of our work. We're proud to partner with them to make our community stronger. And now we're starting the event called The Community Value of Home Visiting. Home visiting is the most cost-effective way to do a prevention program in early childhood education. Our home visitors are trained in the reflective capacity, child development, brain science, and trauma-informed care, attachment theory, and the parenting relationship. They are a wealth of support and resources to each family they serve. Each home visitor has a caseload of up to 20 families that they visit weekly, and the firstborn program goes from age 0 to 3. So we have many families that graduate from our firstborn program, 3-year-olds that have their first graduation ceremony that we feel like our home visitors are really part of the family at that point. It's been such an amazing 3 years to spend with a family from infancy, sometimes even starting prenatally through 3 years old. The home visiting programs are very near and dear to my heart. I started with United Way of Santa Fe County 12 years ago and started as a home visitor in the firstborn program. So I had several families that went through the full 3-year cycle with me and graduated during that time. And then I went on to help develop and create the Great Start Home Visiting Program, which is at the time was funded mostly from Christus St. Vincent as a prevention program that all families who leave the hospital with a newborn baby get the option of 3 free home visits to assess their early development that first 30 days, not only for the baby, but also for the recovery of the parent and the challenges they might be facing at home. So home visiting is a model that's used in across the country as a way to do early intervention support and guidance. It's a very affordable model to implement, and the firstborn program was developed in Silver City, New Mexico by a pediatrician and a social worker. And they created and developed a full curriculum for parents with children ages 0 to 3. And that particular program is now replicated in over 18 counties in New Mexico. And it was studied by the Rand Corporation here in Santa Fe County and was proven to be evidence-based, meaning that the program itself significantly improves outcomes for families that participate. So our home visiting program is also a universal enrollment, meaning that it's open far and wide to all families who would like the extra information about child development, the support for their home and family life, to answer questions, to learn. And we serve over 200 families now with weekly home visits through this program. We even have a wait list of some families that are hoping to enroll and hoping to get involved. So it's a very successful program, and you'll hear today from 2 of our home visitors, and you'll hear from 3 families who have received home visiting to describe to you a little bit about what is the value of home visiting. So welcome. My first question is to Simran Adeneji, who's a friend and colleague, and she is a home visitor for the Great Start Home Visiting Program. Simran, can you tell us a little bit about the program and maybe give us some examples of how you work with families in that first 30 days?
Absolutely. Thanks, Abby. I'm Simran. I coordinate the Great Start program for Growing Up New Mexico. And I actually also started as a home visitor a long time ago, and I had my own children, and now I'm back. I love this organization and I really enjoy my job so much. I want to tell you a little bit about what we do just in a sort of logistical way so you get a sense of how it's different from the home visits that firstborn or the home visiting program that we're offering that go further down the track, like 3 years, as Abby was describing. So with Great Start, our goal is really to help parents in those first weeks, really up to 2 months, but the first week. So ideally we can access them in pregnancy. So we're able to offer some information about breastfeeding and lactation, or anything related to newborn skills and parenting, obviously. So sometimes we'll get referrals in the prenatal period, which we love so much, because then I've got you, in my book, and I know when the baby arrives, you just shoot me a text, and then we can step in to help with lactation right away. So sometimes it's in the hospital, sometimes it's when you get home, if you're having a home birth, if you're at a birth center, there's lots of different scenarios, but we're available right away. And what I love also is that we offer Spanish speaking services and English, of course, and I serve everyone. I mean, our program, our team is covering, people who are living in a gated community, right down to a trailer park. Everyone needs support in the postpartum period. It is such a special time, so cozy, and can be so tender and romantic, sacred, and so stressful. It's just a messy time. The kind of cumulative sleep deprivation is so intense for parents. So I'm a mother of 3 myself, and I totally relate. So I get it, but I also just love to nurture families right through this period, because it's such a fleeting kind of passing phase. And it's so important for them to have those skills early on, to feel confident and capable, just kind of moving forward. So some of the things that we do, we're offering 3 home visits typically. Right now they're virtual, of course, but in those times we're doing support related to breastfeeding, newborn care, any questions that come up. It's not clinical necessarily. Any questions about, anything medical, we're referring back to a provider, of course. So it's sort of a social emotional support, as well as some guidance around lactation and weight gain and all kinds of things that come up. I mean, just today I've spoken to a 16-year-old mom. My last visit yesterday was with a 45-year-old mom who's struggling with breastfeeding. I mean, the scope is very broad, and just everyone is welcome, and everyone struggles, frankly, and needs just a little bit of support and reassurance. So the other thing that we do is we do some postpartum assessments. So we're really checking on families, not just about lactation, but also around mental health. So screening them for postpartum depression. And then if we can move families into our home visiting program and they continue on, then of course they get many more assessments going forward. But just in our first few weeks, we're always trying to address, are there needs outside of lactation? So things that we might check for, housing, utilities, food, anybody who needs other services, we can refer them to our navigation program within Growing Up New Mexico, or we can send them out for services if needed. So it's a pretty broad spectrum. Every day I'm doing different things, and I love collaborating with the other agencies in town, but also with providers. Sometimes I'm needing to check in with them to see what the best care plan is for a family. So it's very varied, just depending on what everybody needs. And we're able to really attune to each family, which is just what I love about my job, basically.
Mm-hmm. So Simran, can you tell us where you get most of your referrals from?
Yeah, primarily we're getting our referrals from hospitals, so either from Presbyterian or Christus. We also get quite a few from pediatric clinics. Like we'll get some pediatricians who they can identify right away that a mom's struggling with breastfeeding, and they'll send them our way. Or if baby's struggling with weight gain, for instance, and they need that kind of tracking. So sometimes pediatricians or family practice doctors will also send our way. And also prenatal classes, so childbirth classes in town, will send people our way, because we would love to have more prenatal clients, because that really establishes their plan for breastfeeding too. Families are really thinking about how they're going to feed their baby early on. And so if the more we can have education around that, it can really prepare them for some of the challenges that might come, and help them face those, better skills.
That's great. So I remember when we first created the program, the goals really are to increase breastfeeding rates for the parents who are wanting to breastfeed and need that support. Also to identify the postpartum depression or anxiety that can become very severe during that first month. And then, like you said, connecting them to community resources. So if there are other concerns during that time with an older child or with a job or housing security, food security, then we can be a resource to families. And that's really unique. There's not a lot of resources in that first month to 6 weeks. I know when I left the hospital, my doctor said, I'll see you in 6 weeks. I hope you're feeling better by then. And it tends to be a time that we can neglect some of those new parents and not really be able to address those concerns. So this is a really unique program in that it's not long-term, but it is focused in that first month-ish to provide the specific types of support. And it sounds like somebody could enroll even if they're not breastfeeding, they could still benefit from what you have to offer.
Absolutely. And I sometimes have fully bottle fed babies accessing our program because it's not only about lactation, it really is about wider services and also just family support. So however you want to feed your baby is fine. Although I'm skilled in lactation, I can help with any kind of scenario. If you're combined feeding or accessing our program is super simple too. Whether you're getting asked at the hospital after birth or at the birth center, would you like the service? That's one way. But the other way is on our website, you can enroll yourself. It's no referral needed, really. You're welcome to just join. And I'm glad you brought up about the statistics because actually when we did, look over our reports to see what the biggest benefits have been, what we found is that families felt they got a lot of support in terms of feeding baby, but they also had more confidence in their parenting and we had less admissions back to the hospital. And that's a really big thing that can really disrupt the early period in terms of bonding. Essentially, if you have to go back because of jaundice or because of weight gain or other conditions, it's a real hassle and it's also scary. So once you get home, you want to be there and stay home. So having that person to touch in with, in addition to literally your postpartum visits, I mean, anybody who's had a baby can attest to this. If you're having a baby in a hospital, you'll often see somebody at 6 weeks. If you've had a cesarean, you'll see them at 1 week also. So there's not a lot of postpartum support, just the design of our current system. So although we're not offering a medical clinical service, we're definitely giving guidance in the way of like, this seems within normal parameters or this doesn't, please go see someone. So it's a real added benefit.
That's awesome. And so I'll just reiterate what Simran said. If you have a family member or you yourself are having a baby, you can go to growingupnm.org and self-refer into our home visiting program. Nothing fancy, just let us know who you are and we will be in touch. So thank you so much, Simran. I am going to move to Michelle Rodriguez, who is one of our home visitors in the firstborn program. So she is doing the longer term home visiting with families 0 prenatal through 3 years old and using the curriculum I mentioned that is developed to follow families chronologically through the first year and then topic based in the second and third year. So I'm so happy to introduce Michelle Rodriguez, who is a home visitor. And Michelle, why don't you give us an idea of the kind of support that you offer as a home visitor and some examples of ways that you've worked with your families.
Okay. Hi, I'm Michelle, and I've been with Growing Up New Mexico for a little year now. And prior to that, I was a preschool teacher for many, many years. So I spent a lot of years in the classroom. And so sort of my specialty is early childhood education. So I kind of bring that a lot to my visits. So I'm able to work with prenatal moms, like Abby said, all the way through until their child is 3. With the prenatal moms, we just sort of walk hand in hand with them through their pregnancy, sort of help them understand sort of what's going to happen, where their baby is during their growth, at whatever week they're pregnant. I like to do a lot of visits with them to kind of give them ideas of things that no one ever really talks about. Sort of what happens to your body after the baby's born, what happens to your, what does labor look like? So we like to discuss a lot of those things so that when mom does go into labor, she feels like she's got some information and she feels confident about that. And we also, again, work with children from birth till 3. And so what we do is we help parents to really explore how their relationship with their child, their attachment with their child, how does that reflect in their child's development? What does that do for their child? How is that beneficial for their child? We help give them tools because we want them to be confident in their parenting. And so I want to walk with them through this journey and really, give them tools to have so that they feel confident in their parenting abilities and their parenting skills. And so when issues arise, they feel confident in being able to support their child get through whatever it is that they're getting through. If it's sleepless nights or introducing to solid foods or, whatever that might look like, we want to be there to help support that family get through that particular part of their child's growth. We also point out interactions between parents and children, and we show them just how wonderful those things that we do every day for our children are, because sometimes I think as parents, we feel like it has to be this really big, grandiose thing that we have to do for our children, when it's really not, when it's really just being there for our child, having a conversation, just, you know, eye to eye contact, just having that moment where you're interacting with your child, and how enriching that is for that child's development of their cognitive skills, their early literacy skills. And so that's kind of what I like to do. It's sort of my specialty, and I really help parents to understand like how all of those things add up for school readiness for your child, and how that's going to look when your child gets to a classroom. Because I've seen that in my own classrooms in the past, of a child who's came to me who has been prepared and has had those attachments and has those bonds with their parents, and how they're able to flourish and explore a classroom, and it makes learning available to them, versus the child who is still very scared and doesn't have that attachment, is not getting their needs met. You know, if they have to worry about if I'm going to eat today or who's going to pick me up today, they're not going to be able to learn. So I really help parents to kind of see how those things that they do daily really does help their child for school readiness. And so also, like Simran was saying, we also support them with assessments. We do an EPDS, which is what Simran would do for the postpartum, just in case, you know, a mom's struggling. We also have the ability to give them a referral to a mental health specialist. We can help them sort of navigate that if they need help, or just give them a list of providers that they can then reach out for. We also do assessments to make sure that there's no domestic violence in the relationship, or if there's any issues like that, we would be able to give them referrals for that. And we also do assessments for the children as they grow, to make sure that their child is on track. And if there's any concerns, we can always refer them to EI services here in town, which we've done a couple of times. And for the most part, we're here for support. We're just here to really champion the parent, to really cheer them on, and just to be here for them, and to just really support them in their day-to-day parenting, and just really be here to listen, and to, you know, offer advice if we need to, or we have to, or we're asked to do that, but just to be a listener, just to really listen to them and let them know that they're being heard and they're not alone. Especially now during the pandemic, since a lot of new moms are just at home by themselves with their baby, and not so much with a big family that would normally come around them and sort of be there to support them during this time. So it's really been a blessing to be able to be there for these parents who are, you know, at home alone for days and days and weeks, just to have someone to talk to. So yeah, that's kind of what we do.
It's amazing. It's so, there's so many things you're doing at any given time. And I remember feeling like, if you yourself are a new parent and you didn't have a good role model for parenting in your life, you had a difficult childhood, or your parents were absent, or any number of scenarios, that under stressful situations, you'll resort to what you knew as a child. And that the great news is that with this type of support, you can actually learn the skills for healthy attachment. You know, and sometimes with a newborn, it's something as simple as eye contact and talking in that sing-songy lullaby voice, or sometimes it's picking them up when they cry, or if she can express to you that I get really stressed out when I hear my baby cry and it makes me feel angry, or all of those complex and multidimensional things. When you have a home visitor, you have the person that's there to hear that and listen, like you said, and you can learn the skills for healthy attachment, which is, you can break the cycle of a disrupted attachment that interferes with the development. And you can teach parents how simple it really is to be responsive, to imagine what your child's needs might be at any given moment. And that it's simple on one hand, and then it's really necessary to have a teacher or a guide if you don't have that reference point.
Yeah, I completely agree. I agree. I think that's very true.
Yeah.
And I think it's just letting them know that it's those little things. It's not this big thing. It's a little thing, and you're doing it every day. And just to remind them to be proud of themselves, and to know that they're doing these great things every day, even though at the end of the day, they feel like, what have I done today? All I've done is feed the baby, change the baby, kept the baby alive all day. and I feel exhausted, but you've done such a great job. And just to remind them of that and remind them to be, proud of themselves and know that they've done an amazing job for their child.
Yes, yes. And I know as home visitors, we're sometimes celebrating with them when their baby starts crawling or starts walking or says mama for the first time. So it's also, like you said, championing the parents so that we're there to celebrate with them as well. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you so much for sharing. And next I want to introduce Marisol Treviso Carlos. Marisol is a mother to an adorable 3.5-year-old that sneak peek. He's in our talent show video on Sunday morning. So make sure you tune into that. And Marisol, I had the pleasure of meeting you when you were pregnant and entering our prenatal programs. And you participated in home visiting, and now your son goes to the Early Learning Center at Connie. So you are a good example of somebody who has benefited from our programs. Tell us a little bit about what it's meant to you and your family to participate.
Thank you, Abby. Hi, good morning, everyone. Well, it has been such a wonderful experience. I remember that when I became pregnant with my son, I was really excited, but I also was really nervous. I didn't know how to care for a baby. So I heard that of the services that Growing Up New Mexico was offering. So a friend of mine started going to the prenatal classes offered there. And we would meet there every other week. We would talk about many different topics of pregnancy, labor, delivery, breastfeeding. There was always delicious food made by Abby and Joanne. And how could I forget that? I was a pregnant woman who was always hungry. So that meant the world to me. And then after I had my son, I received the Great Start services. So a lactation consultant came into my home. She helped me with breastfeeding. I was having some issues. So that was another great service that I received. And then I received home visiting since I was about 4 months pregnant until my son was 3 years old. I'm 3 years old and he graduated from the program. I guess the best way to describe home visiting is as an experience, right? Parenting can be so hard and it comes with so many challenges. And my home visitor would come to my home. This was pre-pandemic, right? A long time ago. And she would bring me information on so many different topics, such as development, behavior, growth, sleep, introducing solid food. She would connect me to resources. And one of the greatest things it was that she would come and she would listen to me. She would validate what I was saying, my thoughts. And that means the world to many people, just to have somebody who would come, not to judge, but to support. It was just amazing. And even as I was thinking about it this morning, I actually began to cry a little bit because the services that I received and the amazing people that helped me, they just carried me throughout this huge chunk of my parenting journey. And they were there every step of the way with me. And I'm so grateful of the services I received. And now I became a home visitor. I thought it was such an amazing experience. And I thought there was so much value in it that I really wanted to become a home visitor. And I was able to join the team. And has been amazing. And now my son also, he goes to Connie. So we have received services from and my son keeps receiving services. So I just cannot tell you enough of how much it means to me. I feel really blessed to have the program.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing, Marisol. And I remember when you and Jenny came during your pregnancies to our prenatal classes. That was awesome. And Marisol mentioned something that is fairly common in our workforce. Many of our staff as home visitors and teachers are people who actually have received services from our programs. So there's really that full circle experience of receiving and giving. We are so happy to hire qualified people that know firsthand what our services are. And Marisol, we're so happy you're a home visitor now. You're sharing the same kind of support and information that you received. And I think that probably makes it even more special coming from you.
Yes, it has been amazing. That's all I can say. And I can say enough good things about the program. I'm always referring people and I'm like, oh, I had such an amazing experience. I hope you do too.
Yes, well, and you have a beautiful son, and I'm glad that you're part of our family. So thank you for sharing, Marisol, about your experience as a family receiving home visits.
Thank you for having
You're welcome. Next, I'm going to move to Bhagya Green, who's also a friend and a family who has received our home visiting services. Your kids are getting older now, and but you've always been willing to come back and sing our praises, and I appreciate that so much, Bhagya. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience with receiving home visits?
Sure. And I have to say, you can't get a better recommendation for firstborn than joining and becoming employed in the team. So talk about singing its praises. I was in a birthing class with my husband years ago, and our names were entered in a lottery because at the time there was a wait list. And unbeknownst to us, we didn't know we were entered in the lottery, but the whole birthing class, their names were put in and we were chosen. And it was amazing. I had read about firstborn in the newspaper we didn't know if we fit the profile. We are older parents. My husband and I was 39, my husband was 44 when we had our first child. And you would think that with age comes wisdom, but a firstborn is a firstborn. And we thought, no, we better go with it. Let's do it. And I can't tell you how special that was for us and what an impact that had for us, because being older parents, I think we had this expectation on ourselves that we should know better. We're well read. We read all the books, and it doesn't matter how many books you read in advance, until you're in the thick of it, you just don't know. And what I loved about firstborn was the giving of information on a week by week basis. So I still have my binder. It looks like a New York City phone book, but you don't get this all at once. It gradually fills up, and each week you get a little flyer, and whether it's tips on feeding or milestones to look for, you get the literature as it's appropriate for that timeline. And it just was a very gentle way to receive information. It didn't feel overwhelming. We started at the prenatal stage and with Marjorie, and now our Marjorie's son is in preschool with my daughter. So we get to see our original home visitor every week still, and it's such a treat. But we started prenatal and went all the way to 3, and we also received the community resources along the way. We encountered some speech development issues, and I don't know if I would have recognized that we were having some developmental delays. It takes an expert in the field, but with a gentle delivery of information. And we were able to catch something early enough that it was able to be worked with and rectified. And other community resources as well. If I was feeling low, boom, here is who you can contact about your mental well-being. And if there were some physical milestones that weren't being met, boom, here's somebody else who can come to your home and help you. Of course, this is all pre-pandemic. And the other thing that I really loved about having a home visitor was the unconditional, non-judgmental guidance and deliverer of information outside of a relative, because your family members are always going to think they know what's best, and they're always well-intentioned, but your family dynamic is there, and so information and advice can be received in a different way than it was intended. And you're already feeling a little up in the air, a little isolated, and to be validated and empowered by your home visitor was a great feeling. And I think for my husband and I, we received as much benefit just socially and emotionally. She was like a marriage counselor to us at times, and a counselor with the in-laws. And it wasn't just about our child, it was about all around wellness. And I use the analogy of the airplane. You put your oxygen mask on you first before assisting others. If you are not feeling well and supported, you cannot be a successful support for those around you, and mainly your child. So I felt that not only was our child being set up for success, but I felt that I was too. And it was just a wonderful feeling. And that's why I've been so supportive and singing the praises of Firstborn, because I know what it did for me. And I know that that's replicated in every family that receives this wonderful, invaluable benefit. It's just, you couldn't ask for better support, in my opinion. To have a home visitor come every week for over 3 years, it's incredible. The consistency and the guidance. I truly feel that my children, we had a second child, and I know that she has thrived because of the experience and everything we learned through Firstborn with our first child. And I think they're doing very well. And I think that they will be successful in their academic careers down the line because of everything that was imparted on us. So thank you for that.
Bhagya, that's so well said too. And I appreciate that you mentioned that it was really a whole family support. It wasn't really just coming in and focusing on the child. And that's actually becoming more clear that is the pathway to using this type of service for success, is not just focusing on the child, but really addressing multi-generational needs in the home and who's there, what else is happening, that actually we can increase the chances for success for a child if we can address the marriage, the relationship, the family dynamics, the anger issues, that, anything that might be an issue, that you'll be a better parent to your teenagers, you'll be a better parent, all around. And hopefully you've learned that value of taking care of yourself, and that put your oxygen mask on and
Right.
Noticing. Right. Thank you so much, Bhagya. I appreciate it. All right. And next we have Lisa Moore. Hi, Lisa. Thank you so much for being here. Lisa has a beautiful daughter, Rosemary, and she will tell us about her experience with Firstborn.
Thank you, Abby, and hello all. So I was first drawn to the Firstborn program because I truly believe that you can't have enough people that love and support your children. And I thought I would save a lot of time by having somebody come to me once a week. I thought I would save a lot of internet searches, a lot of time reading books. I figured you all had researched things well and would be a quick go-to. And I just really, I liked the idea of a person coming weekly just for me, that there was always that time slot, there was always that opportunity, there was somebody actually extending themselves to me, saying what's on your mind. And it felt like it would take, some of the weight off. And it turns out what I got from the United Way was, and now the, the early childhood partnership is very much different than what I anticipated. I got that, but I got a lot more. And pretty quickly after my daughter was born, my marriage and our family situation got very difficult. There were some red flags previously, but when my daughter was born, I found myself in an overwhelmingly and bizarrely abusive situation that was physical and sexual and emotional and financial. And so having our firstborn visitor just there in place at such a time that there was so much dichotomy, there was so much beauty and so much love, and so much real challenge, and in a way that I never would have anticipated. Allowed me to have the opportunity to start speaking with her a little bit. And what struck me from the beginning was, my home visitor's ability to be absolutely neutral with me. We started talking about plans to, emergency plans to get out if need be, or how you go through the process of decision making of whether you need to leave, and what kind of where your levels of assessment are of when do you leave a relationship, and those sorts of things. And I absolutely felt that she was with me no matter what choice I would make. And I really feel that ability to be there and neutral in that place with me allowed me to open up more than I would have. It was not something that I would have talked to somebody in my family about. It's not something I'd really talk to healthcare people about too much, because often people in those situations are afraid of the response. And I had had a lot of birthing complications, a lot of infections and things like that. So I was very weak as well. And it wasn't that easy for me to just leave our home. So I ended up waiting about 9 months until I was strong enough to leave. And Rosie and I stayed in Airbnbs and hotels for a while. And our home visitor came to see us there. We would walk along East Alameda, because there was nowhere else to go. And, the United Way, what was the United Way, and now, the Early Childhood Partnership has always gone way out of their way for us, in a way that I think was way beyond any sort of program. There is the program, there's the science, but there is also, the heart and the intention of just a person to a person and sharing. And I think that is really the true beauty that I see. And especially when I hear everyone talk about, our different experiences, and, these times of early childhood and parents coming into being parents, is so vulnerable, as Simran said, and so beautiful. And it really requires so many skills across the whole board. And so does it for the home visitors. And, now our family system is pretty complex, and we've worked with a few different home visitors for some different reasons. But something that has felt as a mother in a really scary situation, because I did ultimately leave because I felt that Rosie's life was being jeopardized on a daily basis. I just said, I can't go another day until something happens. We're getting too close to that possibility. And to be able to be with a person and help reflect the joy of that time. And also, I've to all of the home visitors we've had 3, and Rosie, and I are almost done with the program, but I've looked to them for their confidence in our situation. Because for me, I grew up with, 3 children, 2 parents that have been together since they were in junior high school. And this was really new territory for me. And it was just mind-blowing to think, I believed in my heart and would do everything that I could to make it okay for us. But I was really afraid that it might not be. And so to be able to talk to these women and people that know and have seen health and wellness in these difficult situations, and as pretty much everyone's talked about, the encouragement and belief and just the wind under your sails that the people of these programs do, it's been one of the most valuable things. And Rosie and I have worked with different people in different capacities, and there are some people that have been unable to deal with our situation and have in one way or another kind of inched away, or they didn't have the expertise. It's really it's a difficult situation. And, you know, for these people that, you know, the home visitors that, I mean, just the amount of skill to calm a mother's heart enough to be able to talk about situations at another home that, I mean, in some ways, this situation has been like my worst nightmare, something I never thought possible. And here we are. And I look to our home visitors and they have faith and trust. And they're like, people do this all the time and kids are so resilient. And like, this is what you're doing. And I'm like, seems okay. Like it seems okay. And, you know, it is. It is. And I would say that, you know, the program has been really a hub for that organizing principles of like, yes, there's diversity, yeah, you know, adversity, there's confusion, but there are these really strong strings that are binding things and holding things together. And Rosie is strong and smart and it's been a major key. And we have some serious professionals on our case, you know, that are, you know, people with PhDs, and I'm like, these women, you know, that we've worked with home visiting, like, are doing just a bang up job of all of the aspects of it. And it's just been a joy and just so inspiring to watch the humanity of it. And it really has been. So I'll stop talking now because I could really go on and on.
Oh, well, thanks for sharing, Lisa. I know I sat in your home with you a few years ago and talked about you being a speaker on behalf of our programs. And I just am struck by your story every time. And I'm so proud of you for being able to share that. And one thing that really stands out for me is in that first 9 months or even prenatal, how your home visitor really just held space for you. And as you say every time, that she wasn't pressuring you that you have to leave or you shouldn't leave, or there was no, you know, push, and that might have closed you up in a way that you didn't want to engage, and that
absolutely,
that she was there.
Truly that openness that allowed me to step into it and hear an accurate reflection back and decide for myself in a really strong, empowered way. It was amazing.
That's beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing. And I think what we've heard today is this amazing ability with our home visiting programs to meet families where they're at and to be able to respond to what is presenting itself. And our home visitors may have up to 4 or 5 home visits a day, and they turn around and go to the next family. And they really do. We emphasize that self-care and that reflective capacity. Take a deep breath so that you can go into your next home visit with an open heart and open mind. And so it's skilled work. It's very skilled work. We're fortunate to have some amazing home visitors working for us. And every now and then we'll do a home visiting conference or something around the state. And really in every corner of our state, there are people just like Simran and Marisol and Michelle working with families and offering that kind of compassion and care and education about children that changes people's lives. Our home visiting programs change people's lives every day. And so I want to thank the home visitors for the important work that you're doing, and thank the families that shared today about your experience receiving home visits. It was a good array of experiences and a good example of how the variety of different types of support that get offered through those home visiting programs. So thank you for that. And in closing, at Growing Up New Mexico, the Early Childhood Partnership, we believe that every child is born ready to learn and grow. And our work in early childhood education is to seize that moment. It's a call to action for us, and it's also our promise to the children of New Mexico and their families. We give families a scaffolding of opportunities so they're equipped for a lifetime. Home visiting costs about $1,000 per family in private donations. We do access public funding that's available, but we raise, in addition to that, up to $1,000 per year per family so that these types of services continue in our community. So if you have been inspired by what you heard today, please donate to sponsor a family to receive this support, guidance, and education about parenting. Who knows, someday it could be your children or your grandchildren receiving the same support. Donate generously at growingupnm.org or on our event page. The event page is where you can find links to every activity all weekend. It's where you can find a place to buy our raffle tickets. You can find your registration there. So keep going back there if you're missing any information. The next event is our Family, Friends, and Neighbors program, which is caregiver support. We found that over 50% of families with young children use family, friends, and neighbors for childcare in the first 5 years. So we developed this innovative program that gives childcare providers the materials, the books, the education that they need to provide a high quality early learning environment in home-based childcare. So stay tuned for that at 2 o'clock today. And we have a lunch break now. Stretch your legs, get some other things done, and we'll see you back here at 2 o'clock. Thank you so much for being here. Bye-bye.